So to give you some idea of the project background, it's 2 million pages of pre-1900 newspapers and journals. There's quite a mix of material in there, and it covers a wide geographic area from the top to the bottom of Wales. The balance of material is about 1.2 million pages of newspaper and about 800,000 journal pages spread over about 500 titles. All of the material is out of copyright, and that's actually quite important for this project because, as we found in previous projects, when you're working with in-copyright material, it's extremely complex. So we've decided to stick to out-of-copyright material. There are intellectual property right issues, but we're working on those, and they're not anything near the kind of issues you'd see with copyright material. We aim to give free access to the entire content over the web. This is something that's not unusual for this kind of project, but it's unlike some of the other projects that are out there, which charge you for access to newspaper material. And we've had £2 million from the Strategic Capital Investment Fund, and this is directly from the Welsh Assembly Government. The project's 3 years, but currently we've secured 2 years worth of funding, so we need the extra year's worth of funding to continue and complete the project. So that's a little bit of the background for what we're doing. Why are we doing it? Well, these are a little more obvious. It's access. Currently, they're only accessible within the building, a lot of the material that we're going to digitise. There's only limited microfilm. There's quite a lot of microfilm, certainly for the newspaper material, but we don't completely cover all of our collections. The journal material, there's very little microfilm at all. So access is the primary function for this project. Anybody that's tried to use the newspapers in our collections will know that they're also very difficult and cumbersome to handle. It's a heavily used collection, so there's high demand from our users to use newspapers and journals as well. And because of that, and because the newspapers weren't really designed for long-term preservation, they were designed as a daily kind of news, they weren't designed to last very long. So we've got to think about the preservation of the original. And as we found, and as you may know, having used the collections, some of these have become old and brittle and they fall apart. User expectations is another major driver for why we're doing this. Other institutions are doing a lot of digitisation. Other institutions are doing a lot of digitisation of newspapers and similar kinds of projects. And as I've said there, we're in an era of mass digitisation. All the other major institutions in the world are undertaking similar kinds of projects. And it's up to us to take this kind of content to our user and not necessarily expect our user to come to us anymore. And of course, we've got multiple uses when we've completed the project, and I've just listed a couple there. Obviously research, but genealogy with newspapers is particularly interesting, and data mining, using all the text that we're going to digitise in different ways to perhaps analyse them in different ways. The other thing, looking at our library strategy at the moment, I've picked out 2 quotes there. The first of which is, I'll try and read it from here actually. In future, remote and especially digital networked access will become more significant. Already remote, including online users of the library, greatly outnumber visitors in person. And that's particularly the case in an institution like ours, which geographically is in quite a difficult position. The next quote is, we shall be expanding our digital library, in particular by substantially upgrading our digitisation programme to encompass information in the form of text. This can lead to the equivalent of a huge, high-quality library in every home, business and school in the land. And this is particularly important. Also, looking forward, our 2020 vision, which is an internal document, I've picked out this quote, which is, by 2020, many more items will be immediately available in their entirety, mostly free and accessible on the internet thanks to digitisation. Maps and sound and moving image material will become more prominent amongst the collections to be treated. The emphasis will remain on unique and rare collections and items, as well as opening up through the optical character recognition of text collections relating to Wales. So you can see that text digitisation is an important part of what we're doing here. So any project like this needs very careful preparation, and there are people in the room here who are heavily involved in this preparation. So the first thing we did was we audited the collections. Now, that might sound strange because we should know what we've got here, but when you've got a collection as large as the newspaper and journal collection, it's not entirely clear all the time. So we had quite a large group of people going through all of the collections, making notes of exactly what was there, what was missing, and what was actually too damaged to digitise in the first place. And benchmarking, this is the process we use to decide how we're going to digitise and what are the specifications for digitisation. So it's all part of the preparation process. Now, as you know, broadsheet newspapers are quite large, and when they're bound into large volumes, they take up a lot of space. To digitise them, we also need a lot of space. So we had to find that space in the library, and we did. We managed to find that by reusing a part of the library that was used for duplicate journal collections. So we needed the large space for large volumes and the scanners as well. These scanners are absolutely huge. To be able to scan a spread of a broadsheet newspaper, you really need a large machine to do that, which I'll come on to in a moment. So purchasing equipment, for a project like this, it's very complicated. There's a limited market. There just aren't that many ways of scanning large newspapers to the kind of specification that we wanted. So the preparation involved there was months. It involved a complex procurement of the equipment, testing it, making sure, setting up contracts, setting up maintenance contracts. So that was a major part of the preparation. And obviously skills as well. Although we've got lots of different skills in the library, this particular project had a wide range of skills needed, not just from the IT side or the digitisation side, but in metadata creation, in the conservation, in preparing material, in tracking it. So we had to do that. And one of the first things that we did when we recruited people and we got everyone in place was to have a meeting to look at the workflow for just getting a single item through the potential workflow that we had. Now, the danger of having meetings like that is that you get IT specialists, you get metadata specialists, you get digitisation specialists in a room. To create a workflow, you end up with something like that. Now, Ishtid's here, he knows all about this. So we had to, I'm not going to try and go through this because I can't remember what it all means anymore. But this was one of the first documents that we came up with, and this was literally just a grab from a whiteboard. And then our chief technical officer was able to basically translate that into something a little bit more usable that would be useful for the project. So I won't go through this because there's a lot of things in there that, quite frankly, would bore you. So I'll move on from that. So I'll move on to how we're doing it. Well, how can be broadly broken down into 5 separate areas. One is tracking and pagination, which is the preparation of the material. The imaging, so the scanning of all of these pages. The OCR, which is the optical character recognition, which I'll get onto in a little while. Metadata creation, obviously, and the final web delivery. Now today I'm just going to concentrate on those first 3 because that's as far as we are in the project, and we'd only have 45 minutes maximum, so we couldn't possibly cover everything. So looking at the tracking, this is all about pagination. This is about creating data about what we've got. That relies on quite a large people. There's 8 people working on this, and they're literally going through every page to mark down what pages are there and what pages aren't to create Excel sheets that we're going to upload to our Wombat, which is our workflow management tool. Explain what that is in a moment. And of course, there's the physical delivery of items to the scanning team and indeed to the pagination team. So moving this kind of material around the building is a task on its own because we're talking about thousands of volumes and some of them literally like this size. So this is Wombat. This is our workflow tool, and it's an intranet-based tool that we've designed in-house. Originally we had help from the university, but now we've pretty much redeveloped this specifically for the project. So each one of these entries here is actually a title for the project. So, and there are many hundreds of titles in the project. Within each title, you have different volumes. So in this case, well, I'm not quite sure what this is, but you'd have multiple volumes within each title. And then with each volume, you'd actually get down to the workflow itself. So you can see here that we start the phase, we confirm that the space is available. We go through all of these separate steps. The ones that I'm going to concentrate on today are actually the imaging ones. So all the way down to every single page that requires scanning. Now, as the scanner operator is scanning, they're literally ticking off each page, or ticking off every 20 pages usually, because it would be unrealistic to ask them to tick every single page when they have to do thousands every day. But this helps us build information. This information is taken directly from the pagination information that the pagination team created. But this information is then useful for us to create metadata after the scanning process is complete.